Thank you for your time today. It's a great pleasure to be able to talk to you about PBC and the Hogan 360. My name's Peter Berry. I'm the Managing Director of Peter Berry. I started the company 29 years ago, and my beautiful business partner and wife, Shayne Nealon, is a managing partner, and she spends a lot of time in this space of working with clients on the Hogan 360. We have been a Hogan distributor for more than 20 years, and Hogan's are the world's leading psychometric testing platform. And we developed the 360 20 years ago, used it in Australia with the Hogan personality assessments for 10 years, and then it went global, and we were very privileged to have the prestigious Hogan name badged on top of our 360. So what is the 360? It's a multi-rater assessment, typically of a manager, emerging manager, executive at work, where we're trying to capture that person's brand at a point in time around both behavioural competencies associated with emotional intelligence and business competencies associated with being both operational and strategic. So today, in the Western world, there's continuing to be a lot of spend on coaching and development programs, and more than 90% of such interventions use a 360 product, which is a multi-rater assessment from managers, peers and direct reports. And we think the Hogan 360 is up there with the best in the world. Why? It's in plain English, it's business language, it's very powerful in capturing one's strengths and opportunities, and it certainly gives someone a clear roadmap to improve. When we use it in conjunction with the Hogan personality assessments, I always say there's no place to hide, because you've got the intrinsic personality, one's motivations and idealised self, plus one's likely behaviour that's going to help them or hinder them in their career. And if you put the 360 alongside it, there's no place to hide, because you've got all the data you need to measure the performance. What's the importance of this? Leadership drives engagement, engagement drives results. So if we can build better leaders through the 360 and Hogan process, we're contributing to better teams and better organisational results. 20 years ago, I was teaching in Australia's leading business school, and I was introduced to the Baldrige Business Excellence Framework, which says there's 7 steps to having a great business. Step 1, which I fell in love with, was effective leadership. And I thought, if effective leadership is step 1 in building a great organisation, why don't we measure leadership? So I started designing the 360 tool, and I found you had to have hard measures in there, like delivering KPIs and business results, soft measures, being rewarding to work with, making people feel valued. And we started using it with our clients. We often used it in conjunction with the Hogan personality assessments, so we had a very rich basis on which to give the feedback. So that was my little mission 20 years ago, to develop a 360. I was very lucky to have the support of Dr. Robert Hogan, who's the head of the Hogan business today, and the world's leading business psychologist. And he encouraged me enormously, to the point where 8 years ago it was launched as a Hogan Global 360. We're very privileged. I have to pinch myself sometimes that it's now in so many languages and being used by big multinationals from our humble beginnings in Sydney. So if you join the Hogan with both the personality assessments and the 360, it's the cheapest and most cost-effective and powerful way of capturing a person's performance so it can be improved. So when it comes to using the Hogan assessments, there are multiple opportunities and different applications, and today we're going to touch on just 5 of those. The Hogan 360 is perfect to use in coaching assignments. So sometimes organisations will identify a tier of leaders or managers for which they want some coaching done. And I think coaching without psychometrics and 360s is pretty useless, because you don't have any data. So perfect for coaching opportunities. Great for executive teams, where the executive has the biggest responsibility for driving engagement and bottom line results. So sometimes we work with the whole executive cohort. And then sometimes we do a lot of work in leadership development programs. And those programs can be aimed at middle managers, emerging stars. So yes, anyone who's leading people potentially should be getting a 360, because how you lead those people impacts your career and the team performance. It's very important for CEOs and executives because they have a particular responsibility to lead by example, to uphold the values of the organisation, to be role models. So we often work with a lot of executives where you might be repeating the 360 every year or biannually. It's like a health check, just making sure that their brand is at its best. The key to using the 360 is to understand that career success comes from your development opportunities, whereby you are changing your reputation, being a better leader of your team and delivering against your KPIs. So it does require motivation to make the change, deliberate practice to make it second nature, and they'll often need to be supported on that journey. It's pretty lonely when you're at the top or a senior executive to be able to have that coaching and support.
And in certain industries, certainly having that science-based approach is preferred by those executives, where having that data on the table enriches that particular conversation and provides great analytics for the organisation.
Absolutely. So I guess the starting point is we're testing for self-awareness. And that's picked up in the 360 because you get self-ratings and other ratings. And then the motivation to keep using these tools to get the best out of yourself and your teams. Okay, so let's start with step one of the potential application of it, and it's for development purposes where we're doing coaching. So when we look at the 360, we're looking at the overall score. You get a score out of 7 and it's benchmarked in percentiles, so you can immediately see whether your score is great, middle of the road, or needs improvement. We then break the 360 down. What did your manager say? What did your peers say? What did your direct reports say? And that's why it's called a 360, because you're getting an all-rounded view from all the different raters of you. And sometimes it's clear that 2 or 3 of those rater groups are very happy with you, but one is giving you a bit of a wake-up call. So it's very important to then target the improvement for that group. We also introduce the self-scores, and we can see whether the person is overconfident, about right, or a little bit lacking in confidence. Then it's most important, as I've mentioned earlier, is that person motivated to improve? Because if they're not motivated to improve, you're not going to get much traction. So it could be about, it's my brand, it's my career, it's my team, or I'm even doing it for my family. That's what the different motivations that have come out of my coaching interventions. Then we also ask them, what support do you need? Internal mentoring, your boss keeping you on track, a 360 repeated in 12 months' time, or doing some formal learning, or just making it practicing on the job. I'd like now to give an example of an interesting case study that I had recently, where the CEO said this person has become arrogant towards peers and direct reports, is focused on just doing his job and not spending any time on relationships, and we don't think this person has a future. They asked me to do the coaching. I said, we'll start with the 360. We did the 360, we came out with not a very good result at all. So I presented the gentleman with his results and then said, this is not good. It could be the end of your career. I said, so let's do a development plan. And I immediately asked, what's your motivation to improve? And his answer was fascinating. He said, well, I have twin daughters that are going to a very expensive school, and my wife wouldn't be too happy if we didn't have the money to put them through that schooling. So I was incredibly motivated to keep my job, to support my family, and we achieved substantial behavioural change in 90 days to the point where the career was recovered, his brand was improved, and the CEO rang me up and said, I don't know how you did it, but it's magic. So it's absolutely fantastic to take a low-scoring manager and make them high-scoring, and equally keep a high score at that high score. One of the things that Shayne and I love doing is working with corporates on leadership development programs. It's one of the most exciting things an organisation can do. So it could be at the executive, it could be at the middle managers, it could be emerging stars. But typically such programs will have a module around self, a module around team, and a module around organisation. And the 360, together with the Hogans, is perfect for module 1. We've got your 360, which is your current brand, around your performance and behaviour and the opportunity to improve off that. We often do a fair bit of sharing in that leadership program with your peers, and the development journey becomes that much easier. We then love to introduce the concept of resilience and emotional intelligence, because if we can teach someone resilience, i.e. how to do recovery when you're stressed and how to keep bringing that positive mojo to work. And if we can introduce emotional intelligence, being rewarding to work with, making other people feel valued, being able to build and sustain relationships, that's the key then to supporting your 360 improvement journey. One of the things we'd like to focus on is taking an intact team. It could be the executive, it could be a business unit, because we think that leadership is about results. Teams deliver results, therefore judge the leader by the team. And the most important way you can do that is with the Hogan 360. But the unit of work is always the team. So that team should be a reflection of the leader. The leader should see the team as being more important than themselves. So if we can create high-performing teams, because they've all done their Hogan 360, they're highly engaged with each other's, they're engaging with their employees, then we think the correlation is a strong leader of a team, a high-performing team, employee engagement, and superior bottom line results. And we're just staggered at how many people tell us of their experiences of having been in a dysfunctional team or a broken team and how demoralising that is. So we do a lot of work to build high-performing teams. We often get asked many questions, Shayne, about return on investment, and that's fair enough too. So I think at an individual level for the person's 360, it's what's their motivation, what's their development plan, how do you measure the success of that development plan? Will it be by their manager feedback or a repeat 360 12 months on? Or if they're leading a team, what have they done with their team? And is that team now more engaged in achieving their KPIs? So I think you can measure it potentially for the individual. For the organisation, we take a more holistic approach, and best practice would be to introduce the concept of workforce analytics. What data have you got to show what drives employee engagement and bottom line results? So we, for example, like to have the Hogan personality data, the Hogan 360 data, team assessments, employee engagement scores, and it's highly predictive of achieving your KPIs around sales, safety, productivity, profit. So that's where you can measure return on investment for the organisation if you've got some sophisticated workforce analytics.
And some of those workforce analytics are also around talent. So for some of our clients, have the participants actually had a lateral move? Have they gone into new roles where they've been challenged and successful? So in that talent space, I think it's certainly something that organisations see as a big benefit for them, and being able to track that from an analytics point of view is quite important.
If we get asked for our recommendation as to what assessment should be used in any coaching or leadership program, it's a no-brainer. We always say, please think seriously about using the 3 Hogan personality assessments. So it's the bright side, the dark side, the inside, which picks up on one's motivations and likely behaviour that will help you or hinder you. Add the 360, which is your workforce reputation at a point in time. And I always say there's no place to hide. That's all the data I need to measure where someone is at a point in time and what the next step might be through the development opportunities. It also gives us some baseline scores on the 360 to then repeat the 360 12 months on. And then we can look for, have you got high performing teams, employee engagement, and are you delivering against your business plan? So this is a great question. If I look back on the very first 360 about 22 years ago, it was a 7-page report. It just had 50 ranked items on a scale of 1 to 7. And through the support of Dr. Hogan, the International Hogan Coaching Network, working with global distributors, we've greatly enhanced, through the concept of continuous improvement, the report today, and it's now 31 pages. So we've added a leadership model, the 4 quadrants, and we can slice and dice that into behavioural competencies, business competencies, management competencies, leadership competencies. We've got 2 fantastic tables, strengths and opportunities, that make it crystal clear what your reputation is. And then we've got the written comments, strengths, opportunities, and strengths being overused. And we've introduced some amazing appendices to show the frequency breakdown of where the scores were coming from. So we would say that it now gives you an enormously impactful set of data to work on. And like I said, it captures your behaviour and performance at a point in time.
There's been a really strong commitment to research in that 20 years. I mean, the amount of research that Hogan and PBC has undertaken on a range of topics, quite extensive, peer-reviewed activity, mapping of the Hogan to the Hogan 360, and also analysis of raters and some of the biases raters might have. The enormous capacity to work with the network, the global network, has allowed us to really look at what different countries and industries might look like. And that's been a long-standing commitment of the two organisations. So,
we are very proud of the global reach with the Hogan 360 suite. We can't believe it's now in 16 languages and there's more to come, and we're operating in 64 countries. I mean, I've got to pinch myself to think from humble beginnings that we were only selling a few here in Sydney. And we're absolutely thrilled that we've got some very big multinationals in the world that have chosen our Hogan 360 against others that are in the marketplace. So onwards and upwards. My feedback is people find the 360 to be deadly accurate. It sort of intuitively fits with what people observe to be your behaviour, but it captures it in a report. It's in business language, so it sits comfortably. It's not written in too turgid a psychological manner. We think the strengths and opportunities tables at the back of the report unequivocally make it clear what are the strengths to be leveraged and the opportunities to be addressed. Sometimes in a number of 360s you can't easily pick the opportunities, but ours makes it very clear. We love the text. We always get a lot of text about strengths, opportunities and strengths being overused, and that narrative really helps us pull together the story. A lot of people love our benchmarks. The benchmarking is clearly something we've done really, really well over the last 5 or 6 years, collecting data from all around the world, very robust, rigorous benchmarks, so that when we say, here's your score, it stacks up statistically. There's a science there, it's very valid, and people do love it. And it gives one a baseline. This is your score today, what would you like it to be in 12 months' time?
So we have seen quite a lot of enhancements in recent times. Obviously the rebranding of the Hogan 360, the updating of the technical manuals every year, the benchmarks, the ongoing research. In addition to that, the Hypo 360, which is ideal for talent, it also maps to the Hogan Assessments Hypo report, and the Leader Focus 360. This looks at non-traditional leaders, but it can also be used across individuals who are also leaders. It's very much focused on people who will be contributing to the new world of work. So it has a specific market. Technology companies like it, agile companies like it. It's really a very contemporary 360. The Leader Focus 360 is designed to develop self-awareness across 6 leadership domains, and they relate to results leaders, people leaders, process leaders, thought leaders, social and data leaders. It also maps to the Hogan Leader Focus report and is ideal for non-traditional leaders or first-time leaders around allowing them to gain greater self-awareness in their career. The Hogan High Potential 360, this particular 360 organisations are very keen on, particularly for their talent. It, in addition to receiving a benchmark against the standard Hogan 360, there are also 3 key components called Leadership Foundation, Leadership Emergence and Leadership Effectiveness. All of those 3 are vital for high potentials. From that perspective, the Hogan High Potential 360 works hand in glove with the Hogan High Potential Talent Report. So the Hogan 360 has a range of options available to clients. I think one of the key things that organisations like is the global benchmarks. We can benchmark them by level, from actually individual contributors all the way to board members, industries, and also the quartiles. What we do know is some of our clients who prefer to benchmark their people at the top quartile. This has been as a result of analytics they've done, which indicates their highest performing people add real value to the organisation. So there is a contemporary item bank supported by global benchmarks. This item bank allows them to look at specific areas their organisation or their competency framework needs to tap into. So by adding those items, it allows them to get a stronger view of the leadership potential in their business. We do map to organisations' own leadership framework. This can be fully customised and leverage off the item banks, the standard Hogan 360, and specific items developed for that particular organisation. And of course, branding and all those things can be aligned to the corporate's own brand standards. So there's a range of administration options for the Hogan 360 suite. It's a full service option, a self-managed solution, a bureau service. We can provide support and training, internal training for organisations who want to be totally self-sufficient, or those who really want us to manage the whole process for them. We do pride ourselves on having a strong support for the application of the Hogan 360 suite. This includes always a technical manual, online qualifying webinars, development activity guides, feedback guides, facilitation materials, and research and white papers. It allows us to feel comfortable that we can transfer the knowledge and skill within PBC and with Hogan to our clients. We have a pipeline of improvements in the Hogan 360. This includes additional mobile enhancements, improved technology support, ordering processes, and the delivery of report. We've based the pipeline on customer feedback and individuals and organisations who regularly use the Hogan 360. They very freely share what they'd like into the future. A good way to actually get started using the Hogan 360 is to complete the online webinar. That will give you a good understanding about the Hogan 360 suite, and it'll just give you some information about how it can be applied within organisations in a user-friendly webinar focus. So very happy for people to visit the webinar. It's complimentary and I'm sure you'll enjoy the experience. You can also contact PBC on the actual details below.
Final thoughts on the Hogan 360. We think it competes effectively globally against other 360s. We're now servicing multinationals, for example. Our clients often love the flexibility of the application. There are different 360 tools and we can even do customised versions. It does neatly fit to a lot of competency frameworks that are out there, so there's a lot of synergy there. It's absolutely fantastic when you use it with the Hogan personality assessments. That's my favourite piece, when you've got all of those data points. I think it certainly enriches the coaching experience for both the person giving the coaching and receiving it, and certainly as a part of a leadership development program, it's one of the jewels in the crown. People often say that was my favourite part of the whole program. So the 360 market continues to grow, so does coaching and leadership development, and we'd love to work with you and support you in using the Hogan 360.